And welcome back, everyone, to Cheddar Wellness, a new podcast called Redefine You, a Conversation for Wellbeing, launched last week, and it brings inspiring, fresh takes on mental health struggles while also featuring conversations with wellness experts and those within the entertainment industry. And the podcast is hosted and dives into personal stories, all inspired by Hayley Hasselhoff. And she joins us now here on Cheddar News. Hayley, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. So the podcast helps highlight the path to self-discovery for a lot of people. What inspired you to really share your personal side and also the mental health and wellness parts in this as well?
Well, I've been a body activist since I was 14, being a curve model at such a young age. And it kind of developed into, beauty comes in all different shapes and sizes. But it wasn't until this past year during the pandemic where it kind of brought to light, me taking the step forward and the fearful step forward and talking about my mental health. And it all came about because I started it as an Insta Live series first called Redefine You, a Conversation for Wellbeing, where I wanted to speak to friends of mine in the industry who have dealt with the fear of the unknown professionally for years and years on end. And I was curious to know what's in their toolbox, because as artists, we still have this anxiousness, but still have to show up. So as if we can give that knowledge back to somebody who may be furloughed or lost their job for the first time, or maybe just are fearful of the fear of the unknown of the surroundings that the world has given us, then we'd be possibly in a good space to help somebody before they get to crisis. And now it's turned into this wonderful podcast where we're continuing to have wonderful conversations with friends of mine in the industry to talk about their ownership to self, their mental health journey, but most importantly, to showcase that you can struggle and still succeed. You can have challenges along the way and still live a very successful and beautiful life. We're also tapping into different wellness techniques or practices, kind of having it be more so to showcase that building your personalized toolbox doesn't have to be that daunting. We'll try out all these crazy fads out there. We'll let you know what may work for me or may work for you down the line. So it's a wonderful, wonderful show that I think has really helped me through this time. And I just hope that it encourages others to be able to look within and see that there's so much power and the uniqueness in them, and that it's okay to not be okay all of the time.
Absolutely. Hayley, for a lot of us, it's hard to sort of reveal so much of your own personal story and sort of break down a lot of those barriers. You mentioned you've kind of been talking out about your body and a lot of things since you were young. Has it been hard to sort of strip down those walls and sort of reveal more things about yourself?
Definitely. And I think that that's the whole thing of the podcast is when you hear me have these conversations with friends of mine in the industry, it's very much like, I know how hard it is. So there's a lot of support and there's a lot of safety that comes into these conversations. And I have to say, I'm so thankful for all the wonderful people who've put their trust into me, because for my own self, I don't know what it was about the pandemic that sort of went from I was traveling 10 flights out of the month to being a standstill. And I was like, what can I do? What voice do I have that I haven't shared that may be able to help another person? And that was my mental health journey. And for so long in this industry, I was fearful that if I came out that I struggled with anxiety or depression or specific things, that it may hinder me professionally. But this past year, I think put things into perspective of what voice do you want to use to be able to help another? And through that, I wanted to say, we all go through challenges, and that's okay. Let's band together to be able to talk openly about what we deal with so it doesn't become a crisis. And if we can kind of guide each other by saying, oh, this worked for me, this worked for me. What I found is when you're vulnerable with another person, they want to be vulnerable with you. And there's so much strength in that. So although it's been a very daunting experience at times for me, and I will be honest, it has been, it's a very new thing for me to publicly speak about these things that have been so private to me for so long. But I know that it's for the bigger purpose. And the bigger purpose is to hopefully destigmatize mental health conversations and allow for a freer society to say, let's strip down the layers of what people may perceive us as because of our professional careers and actually connect on a human level for a moment and see what that looks like and feels like.
Hayley, you became a curvy model at the incredibly young age of 14. I can only imagine the sort of mental health hoops that you had to go through when you're seeing what traditional models look like on all these other billboards all over the place. You talk about body activism a lot in this podcast, but you also talk about mental health as well. Talk about how these two things are connected here.
Well, there's such a connectivity between body image and mental health. And I've always felt like through my story with body image, it felt authentic to me, but there was always a little piece missing. And I think I clicked into it this past year by going, I understand now that when my mental health had suffered, the first thing that would go would be my self-judgment. And the self-judgment would go straight to my body image. It would go straight to, I'm not achieving a specific goal or a life personal goal because of my body. So I think they really do walk hand in hand. So when you start to kind of remember that your mental well-being should be a practice on your daily list every single day, it allows you to have a more connected relationship to your self-image and to your body image. And with everything that's going on in the world today, our self-image and social anxiety is on the rise. So if you can start to sort of say, maybe my body image isn't where I want it to be at this point in my life, but I'm going to start to live in a state of acceptance and work towards by having a better relationship with my mental well-being overall by putting things in as simple as movement or mindfulness or mental engagement to be able to feel that groundedness, that will relate into your idea of your body image and your self-image and probably your confidence as well.
Hayley, I have about a minute or so left with you. So many girls are probably watching this interview that we're doing and are inspired by you, inspired by your story. What advice maybe do you have for them in terms of how they should feel about themselves and how that connects to their mental health as well?
One of the biggest things I would say is to live in a state of acceptance, because when you start to accept your body, when you start to accept your surroundings, you're open to all the wonderful possibilities of growth. When you close off, then you're resisting to all the possibilities of that. So if you can wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to accept what life has given me, I'm going to accept the beauty that my body is, and knowing that you are worthy just as you are. And I know that sometimes that can be really hard to tap into. And you can look in the mirror and you can say, I don't believe it. But you got to keep saying it because your body will start listening and hearing it. And one of the things I think that I've even recognized in my group of friends, even being back in LA, is if you start with something that validates you. So do something that you know that you can validate yourself for, whether that be something you're passionate about, going on a good date with somebody that you know loves and cheers you up. It's just about finding those little things to be able to take ownership of who you are again. And then that will start to trail into a bigger effect on your overall sense of self.
Oh, amen. So well said. Hayley, such a pleasure to have you here on Cheddar News with us. That is model and podcast host Hayley Hasselhoff. Redefine You, a conversation for well-being. Available now where all podcasts are sold.